Welcome to the Archetypes of the East series. Hexagram 20 deals with the profound concept of reflection, the act of observing the inner self through introspection or discovered insight. Contemplation focuses on cultivating inner virtues and refining actions to positively influence the world. In politics and statecraft, the I Ching advises those in power to examine themselves so that they may act as vessels for higher principles and enact the mandate of heaven. When inner sincerity and outward actions align with one's divine purpose, they become a force for good. Like other hexagrams, contemplation calls for deep reflection and preparation before taking action. At times, the oracle recommends withdrawing from chaos to gain the perspective needed to fully address major dilemmas. The energy of this hexagram is rarefied, complex, focused, and magnetic. It's the energy of a still point in the midst of a turning world. This is not the emptiness of exhaustion, but the fullness of presence. You're not pursuing a goal, you're allowing the goal to reveal its true nature to you. In matters of statecraft, this is the archetype of leading by example. The leader examines themselves to ensure that they are a vessel for truth. When your inner sincerity and outward actions align, you don't need to bark orders. Your character creates a moral gravity that pulls others into alignment. Withdrawing from chaos to gain perspective is about sacred withdrawal. This is the high tower strategy. If you're in the middle of a chaotic situation, you're only going to be able to see 5 feet in front of your face. By stepping back, you see the patterns of the cosmos that make the solution obvious. This hexagram is recommending strategic non-action. Reflection in this hexagram is regarded as preparation. Contemplation is the ablution, or the ceremonial washing. It's the mental and spiritual purification that ensures that when you finally do move on your endeavor, your action is surgical and divine in its precision. The image of Hexagram 20. Wind over the earth. The wind blows over the earth, the image of contemplation. The prominent leaders of history visited and studied the regions of distant lands, contemplated their people, and taught, giving their own populace instruction from what they learned and discovered about the world. The image here is the wind blowing across the vastness of the earth. This describes an influence that is everywhere all at once, but never heavy-handed. You are observing the world to understand its workings so that your eventual leadership is grounded in universal laws rather than personal whims. Just like the wind, we are able to reach everything. This is a call to expand your perspective beyond your immediate circle. To solve your current endeavor, you must study the regions of distant lands, meaning you should look for analogies in different industries, cultures, or philosophies. Don't just look at the problem, look at the world that contains the problem. This is the hexagram of leading with visibility. A seeker knows what to teach and sets a standard. In hexagram 20, you are the living monument. People aren't just listening to your words, they are viewing your life. To set a standard, your clarity must be visible in your actions. You cannot teach what you have not first contemplated and integrated within yourself. The advice here is to initiate synthesis. Take what you have learned and discovered about the world and bring it home. This is the stage of strategic synthesis. You are the bridge between a distant insight and a local application. The judgment of Hexagram 20 states, contemplation. The first initial steps of the initiative are complete, but the full work still remains. Like a priest's washing of the hands, the ablution is done, but the ritual offering rite is not yet made. Full of trust, one looks upward in a moment of stillness before commencing meaningful action. Hexagram 20 represents a state of holy readiness. The ablution, or the hand washing, is the internal preparation. It's a kind of stripping away of the ego, the noise, or the distraction that you have within. You are now standing at the altar of your endeavor. The offering, or the final action, has not yet occurred, but because your focus is so intense and pure, you are already changing the environment just by standing in it before acting meaningfully. The oracle suggests that when you are at one with yourself, you influence the world without needing to act. This is about radiant authority. Your internal character acts as a lighthouse. You don't need to shout to show ships where the shore is. Just as we view the world, we are also being viewed, especially by others who are seeking guidance. This is the tower aspect. In this phase, people are watching your subtext, not just your text. They're looking for how you handle the waiting to see if you are truly virtuous in your actions. In the realm of career, goals, and ambitions, look at broader trends. Where is the energy going? By leading by example, you provide a view that others can trust. You are the wind that determines which way the grass bends. In the realm of relationships and social flow, it's time to be a silent witness. Spend more time in silence. Sometimes the greatest gift that you can give a partner is the feeling of being truly observed without judgment. Clarity is found in the careful observation of the patterns between you rather than the words spoken between you. A changing line 1. Childlike contemplation is fine for a child, so there is no blame. For the mature superior one, it is embarrassing. This line is about outgrowing the surface level. Line 1 is the lowest position in the hexagram, furthest from the high tower. It represents the ground level view. While this innocence is acceptable for someone just starting out on their journey, it's a liability for the superior one. One's level of observation is like that of a child. You're currently only seeing what is directly in front of you, at face value. You're reacting to symptoms rather than causes. If you're a beginner, there is no blame in this. Everyone has to learn the alphabet before they can learn to read a book. The oracle is subtly scolding you not to dawdle. If you have past wisdom and experience, staying in this shallow musing is a form of intellectual cowardice. Your action to take is to broaden your horizon. Move on from youthful beginnings. Stop looking at inconsequential events and start looking at the system and the world itself. If you're in a conflict, stop looking at the last thing said and start looking at the 10-year history of the relationship. A changing line 2. Limited contemplation as if looking through the crack of an open door. The perseverance of the receptive force brings good fortune. This is about acknowledging your blind spots. The advice to take is to acknowledge partial truth. One does not have the full view. You're currently seeing only part of the problem that affects you directly. This is subjective contemplation. If you act now, you're acting only on a fragment of information. The oracle advises you to press on seeking all information. Don't settle for the first answer that satisfies your ego. Traditionally, this line favors the woman or the receptive power because it represents a role that excels in internal observation. In a modern context, this means to be the researcher rather than the judge. Use this limited view as a starting point for deeper investigation rather than a final verdict. The action to take is to suspend your judgment. Don't make judgments or actions without seeing the full picture yet. If you're in a conflict, realize that you haven't heard the other side. If you're in a business, realize that you haven't seen the competitor's full hand. Stay in the ablution phase. Wash away your assumptions before you offer solutions. A changing line 3. Contemplating one's life direction and path. One must decide whether to advance or to retreat. This third line is about objective reckoning. It sits at the top of the inner trigram of Earth, and it's the threshold between your private thoughts and your public influence. Here, contemplation is no longer about looking at the world, it's about looking at your trace. You're analyzing the life direction that you have taken so far to see if it still aligns with the mandate of heaven or your ultimate goal. The advice is to review your impact. Examine your actions, motivations, and effects. This is a diagnostic of your approach. Are people thriving because of your influence, or are they depleted? This new level of self-awareness is the only thing that can accurately tell you whether to advance or to retreat. In line 3, you must be completely and brutally honest with yourself. You can't afford to be childlike or limited here. You must see yourself as an outsider would. This is about course correction. Use this moment of stillness to decide. If you realize that the current path that you're on is based on an old ego drive, retreat. Not in defeat, but to realign. If your path is serving a general benefit, then double down and advance. A changing line 4. Contemplation of the achievements of culture. It furthers one to exercise the eminence of their accrued influence and to be an advising guest in the presence of authority. Line 4 is a transition. You have moved from the past childlike views and the self-audit in line 2 and 3. Now you are looking at the systemic brilliance of everything around you. You see the light, the underlying health, potential, and values of your organization, community, or your endeavor. Because you understand the why behind the how, you are invited into the presence of authority. This is the line that recommends absorbing excellence, inspecting and learning to absorb best methods. Do not just look at what works, look at why it works. When you incorporate these precious insights into your own character, your influence becomes broad and refined. You aren't just an employee or a member, you're a cultural asset. To be a guest of the king means that you are close to power but not consumed by it. You maintain the high tower perspective. Your value lies in your independence here. If you become a mere yes man, you lose the light that you were hired to contemplate. The advice is to exercise your eminence. It's time to speak your truth to power. Because you have done the ablution and the self-audit, your influence is now surgical. Use your accrued influence to advise on pivotal events and social innovations. You are the bridge between the people's needs and a leader's vision. A changing line 5. Contemplating the sum of my life's course. The superior one's example of self-reflection is without blame. Line 5 is about becoming a living example. This line mirrors line 3, but the stakes here are higher. In line 3, you looked at your own path, but line 5, you look at the fruit and the result of your life or endeavor. You contemplate your life by looking at the people that you've influenced. If they're thriving, it's a reflection of your inner virtue. The advice here is to become the role model. One's actions speak for themselves here. At this level, you no longer need to give instruction. Your mere presence draws positive forces because your self-reflection is visible. You are without blame because you have aligned with your purpose and your outward actions. You are an example others willfully observe. This means that you are never off the clock. The superior man understands that their private self-reflection is a public service. By constantly refining your own character, you provide a high ground for others to aim for. It's time to commit to the ultimate audit. Look to your team, your family, your project, your endeavor. Are they reflecting clarity or confusion? In Hexagram 20, the leader takes 100% responsibility for everything that has happened up to that point. If the grass is tangled, the wind must check its own direction. A changing line 6. Contemplating the totality of life's course. The superior one's profound observations of highest truths are without blame. This line is talking about transpersonal wisdom. In line 5, the leader looked at my life, or the effect of one's ego. In line 6, the sage looks at their lives, the collective human experience. You've reached a perfectly detached height where you no longer see individual problems, but universal patterns that govern all things. This is the mandate of heaven in its purest form. One has become an observer of cycles. You're now seeing the big picture, the laws of cause and effect. This perspective allows you to step outside of negative cycles because you can see them coming from a mile away. You're no longer a participant in the chaos. You are a witness to the order that comes from chaos. Being detached doesn't mean that you don't care. It means that you aren't blinded by personal desire. Your innate wisdom allows you to act correctly and uprightly because you are aligned with cosmic rhythm. You are without blame because your actions are no longer driven by I, but by truth. This is about returning to the source of understanding. Use your profound understanding to guide others, but to do so with the lightness of the wind. You have attained mastery of human nature itself. Your role now is to hold the highest truths so that those below, in lines 1 through 5, have a North Star to follow. This concludes Hexagram 20. I hope that you liked the video if you found it helpful in understanding this hexagram. Subscribe to follow along in this series, and in our next episode, we're going to look at Hexagram 21, Biting Through, Gnawing, the hexagram of justice and punishment. See you then.